were pretty looking people, but I can tell you people, they were the devil's children.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Oh dear, oh dear. I love you too, Aurora. Yes, I do. Okay. But not too much mummy and baby love. Okay. Well, we are going to plunge right in with the antics of Madam and other cuts, because I have been asked by several people to cover the Meghan interview, which I have to tell you is truly outrageous. And the situation is truly bizarre. And unfortunately, as I am speaking to you, I am looking at this picture of this woman who is, she is so repellent looking. Yet again, a mach to Diana, and the dray horse version of the fine racehorse, and the cold, hard, calculating, oh, I'm so wonderful and full of myself. And I expect everybody to agree with me that I am the most wonderful person that God put on this earth. Repellent. Anyway, basically, everything is about the cut today, because it's really important to break down the lies, the parody, the shade, because I have to tell you, the writer is actually quite interesting, because she casts a lot of shade on Meghan. She has done a really very professional job of executing her brief and executing Meghan as well, just by descriptiveness. I commend her. Her name is Alison P Davis. And makes a baby. She's black, so you can't say she's racist. Although, of course, we mustn't forget that the South Africans are racist as well. All of them, black, brown, and white. Oh, everybody's racist. Even Nelson Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela, who's come out and condemned you by making it quite clear that likening your accomplishment of having slept with and married a prince to Nelson Mandela's 27 years imprisonment and coming out and being the father of the nation, is the two things somehow aren't comparable, except to you. Anyway, Alison Davis is really rather good. So, first question, who said that? That's the name of the person. Well, the identifying mark of the person. Well, a lot of people's gaze is on Markle. So far, she has been a genius. It's a shame, but whatever she's doing, it works. I have made that point before, and I'm glad you have made it as well. You underestimate somebody of the enormity of Meghan Markle at your peril. She has everybody talking about her. She is a provocateur of the highest order. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she knows exactly how to ultimately get a rise out of someone. She has a scattergun approach, because not every provocation is going to elicit the desired response that she requires. But she knows if you shoot enough bullets, they're gonna catch the target. If only because of numbers. The Warren Beatty way of dating, if those of you who are old enough to remember Warren Beatty, he'd night after night go through his diary and his address book and just phone girls until one said yes, on the basis of the fact that sooner or later one was going to say yes, and all the no's didn't matter as long as he scored. Meghan's doing the same thing, except it's not with dating girls. It's with hating people. NCB says, Mariah Carey called her a diva, and Meghan turned it around as a personal attack on how she looks. Yes, yes, yes. Except Meghan didn't really turn it around as a personal attack on how she looks, so much as Meghan deflected the attack so that Mariah Carey, who would otherwise have been put in the impossible position of saying, no, you're just a total horrid person, or given that message, deflected that she looked like a diva. So what was really an insult and a very true observation was deflected by Megsy Baby into a compliment that it clearly was not intended to be. Melanie Hoyt says, Markle is saying on her second podcast she wasn't recognized as a black woman until she married Harry. Please, what is she saying in a different manner? It's that the British royal family is racist. Enough. And Edith Foxton says, please, Lady C, can you address the matter of the cut by breaking it down bit by bit the way you have done with books? Yes, I will. She obviously has a brief, and her brief is to interview Meghan. Well, I have to tell you, she does it so well. She allows Meghan fatally to speak for herself. And when Meghan wants to regulate traffic and put the onus on the author, Miss Davis very cleverly unmasks Meghan. The article is a brilliant study in manipulation, calculation, malice, fantasy, egotism, shockingly disconnection from reality, and parody, with the author putting in the boot repeatedly. Now, I as a writer can tell you there are many ways of writing something, and shade counts. And Miss Davis is absolutely brilliant at creating the most massive shade. So without further ado, she starts pretty much at the very beginning, putting the boot in if you know what to look for, because she is describing the setting as she arrives. And Meghan is in a cozy chair, and she says, gazes over all that is climate controlled and high ceilinged and sun dappled and perfectly marshmallowy and hers. Marshmallowy. So really, she's saying that Meghan is sickly sweet. She then, in the next breath, Meghan name drops, and Miss Davis allows her to and writes it, because she says, an invisible hand has lit a Soho House branded rosewater candle. The founder, Nick Jones, is a friend from long before I met Harry, she says. And that scent fills the air, mingled with the gentle tones of a flamenco-infected guitar floating from a speaker. Well, there are many ways of saying crass and vulgar, and that's certainly one of them. Then, having started, she then has Meghan turning to her and leaning forward in a conspiratorial hush. Do you want to know a secret? Meghan, silenced no more, looks around, making sure nobody, who would be, she asks, is listening in. So she's just let us know that Meghan is a drama queen, a diva, a conspiracy theorist, and a paranoid who's concerned that somebody's going to actually hear what she has to say, even though there's nobody around to hear anything she has to say. Then she says, then the top secret drop. I'm getting back on Instagram. She says, her eyes alight and devilish. She certainly got Meghan's measure. Oh dear. Then, to put the boot in even further, she says, this could have been a troll, delivering a nothing with such gravitas. Feels as if Meghan, who has been so trolled by the media, is serving it back just a little. Then, because she has a brief and she needs to fulfill the brief and she's going to do it, and she's done it very professionally, she goes into some history of Meghan. I need to be careful how much of this I read out, because I don't want to cause copyright problems for myself or anybody else. But she goes into the TIG, she goes into Suits, and she basically is giving us the message that she loved sharing her life with people, she says, but she loved Harry more. Take out the violins and let's start to crackle off. It was a big adjustment, a huge adjustment to go from that kind of autonomy to a different life, says Meghan. Then you scroll down and there is this picture of this woman who looks as if poison is pouring out of her. And it's Meghan. Meghan, who I have to say, the photograph by Campbell Addy is very professionally done, and it captures Meghan to a T. The irony of all of this is between this article and archetypes or archetypes, or however she's going to pronounce the latest types of from Archewell, because of course it should be archetypes, and if it's archetypes it should be Archewell as well. But anyway, I don't want to be too pedantic. But the photographer has captured Meghan's soul, as has the author, and it's not a pretty sight. She goes into how poor Megsy baby was permitted to join Harry and Catherine and William on a pre-existing account. She had to shut down her accounts, but she's going to revive them. Instagram. Here I come. Then Meghan is explaining that there's literally a structure by which if you want to release photos of your child as a member of the family, you first have to give them to the Royal Rota, the UK media pool, she explains. Then, she says, putting the boot in, that didn't sit right with Meghan, given a strained relationship with the British tabloids. And she says, and wait for it, and especially since she would soon have a child of her own to protect, because Meghan, you must remember, was pregnant with Archie at one point. Pregnant. And Miss Davis now puts the boot in because she quotes Meghan in a direct lie that trashes the whole of the British media. Why would I give the very people that are calling my children the N-word a photo of my child before I can share it with the people that love my child? She asks, still ruffled. You can tell how that makes, you tell me how that makes sense, and then I'll play that game. Meghan is hanging herself with every word out of her mouth, and she's allowing her to do so. She's quoting her accurately, and when she needs to put in any riders, Miss Davis does it brilliantly. Well, it is an outrage that Meghan could have actually accused the British media of using the N-word where her children were concerned. Who told her that? Why doesn't she say who told her that if it was true? Which it certainly wasn't. She has just trashed the whole of the British media in much the same way she trashed the royal family, again using the race card. This woman is truly destructive, truly destructive. She also seeks to be a victim, and Alison P Davis allows her to be a victim because she's now going into why Meghan couldn't use the word royal, and how Meghan declared that she wasn't planning on getting back on social media. The constant bullying had been too much. However, Meghan states in this article, as well as generally, that she doesn't ever read her press. So how does she know, if she doesn't read it, what is being said? It reminds me of when Lily Safra said she hadn't read Empress Bianca, my book that she succeeded in getting pulped initially, and then listed 52 identifying features in the book that she said were her. She said they were her. And she was the only person who could say they were her. Similar scenario. Well, now, here we go with Miss Davis. And I quote, especially now with archetypes coming out, she says, steering the conversation towards the reason she agreed to sit for an interview in the first place. Archetypes, the podcast Meghan hosts, is the first much anticipated offering to come. And she goes on about the deals with Spotify and Netflix. Then she says, and this is nonsensical victimhood, that each episode features Meghan in conversation with her famous friends, discussing the way women are unfairly labelled, an experience Meghan notes that she has been through herself and is finally ready to talk about. Of course, Meghan completely ignores the fact that men are labelled too, and that she has been doing nothing but talking about how she has been treated unfairly for the last several years. And now comes Alison P Davis putting the boot in, because she says, though she has been media trained and then royal media trained and sometimes converses like she has a tiny bachelor producer in her brain directing what she says, at one point in our conversation, instead of answering a question, she will suggest how I might transcribe the noises she's making. And now comes the really hysterical shade. She's making these guttural sounds, and I can't quite articulate what it is she's feeling in that moment because she has no word for it. She's just moaning. And then close brackets. At that stage, post-royal, there's no need for her to hold back. So she now has Meghan throwing open the proverbial doors to her life. And as any millennial woman whose feminism was forged in the girl boss era would understand, she has taken a hardship and turned it into content. Well, oh dear. Then she paints Meghan as an arch manipulator, which, as we all know, is very easy to do, because she goes on Meghan's journey from deal or no deal suitcase girl to princess, and that she says that it had the makings of a fairy tale, or at the very least a stellar comedy. And wait for it, but it took almost no time to turn it into an extraction plot from a mid-1950s political thriller. And she then articulates how Meghan has maneuvered the situation to depart on Mexit to Vancouver Island. And she ends with that Meghan made a surprise announcement that they would be stepping back from their roles as senior royals of the royal family in an Instagram post so full of hidden context and meaning that MI6 could use it for message decoding training. You see, Alison P Davis is not only a very good journalist, she is a black woman. And I have to tell you, I'm not speaking for Alison P Davis now, but I am speaking for most of the black high commissioners in this country are outraged at the damage Meghan and to an extent Harry have done to the cause of harmonious race relations and harmonious Commonwealth relations. She goes into the exit, and I'm not going to read all of it because I need to be very aware of not breaching copyright. But she then has a wonderful mocking twist to all of this, because she says, and in a plot twist I may never get over, notice the sarcasm and the irony with which this is laden. Perry offered her one of his homes, a literal safe house in Beverly Hills, complete with security detail, and became in many ways the reason that Meghan and Harry started their life in Southern California. Well, of course, that's not the reason why, and everybody knows it. The reason why Meghan and Harry started their life in Southern California was that Meghan wanted to be a star. She's always wanted to be a star. She simply wanted to be a different sort of star than she's turning out to be. But she now, after going into various bits of Meghanisms that are recounting Meghan's tragic story as a victim, she now comes to Meghan repeating lies that are known to be lies. But she repeats them. Someone fetched over how dark Archie's skin would be. She clarified that it was Kate Middleton who made her cry over flower girl dresses, not vice versa, as the tabloids had previously reported. Bombshells and the firm leaks and relocations, racism and babies. This was definitely not a fairy tale, but revealing all of it was their way of setting fire to a narrative they didn't control and letting a new one emerge. Think about what she's just said there. Very shady. Then she sets the scene and casts more shade because she's describing her first glimpse of Meghan in this new chapter as she crouched in the entryway, arms wrapped around her black lab, Pula, Setsvana for rain and good fortune, and a tribute to an early date during the couple's whirlwind romance in 2016. The front doors are thrown wide open, as are the doors leading out to the backyard. She stands and smiles and waits for the snow. She is now describing, in the most pejorative but polite way possible, a total contrivance. She smiles with the perfect level of warmth. That's shade. The gleam of her teeth, rivaled only by the shininess of her blowout. You talk about an elegant way of calling somebody a total study in artificiality. Brilliantly done. Backlit by the late morning light in a scene that looks like a Nancy Meyer's cinematic interior. Town and Country, Goop and Architectural Digest had an orgy and created the perfect moment in California living. She throws her arms wide open too and gives me a hug. Come on through, she says, beckoning me to join her on one of the many terraces. Very, very beautifully executed. I mean, she's really found brilliant ways, elegant ways of putting the knife in. Then she recounts Meghan's pity fest because she's now allowing Meghan to make a complete idiot of herself by bawling poverty at the same time as spending millions on a house. And the contradictions are so patent that just articulating them, or I should say recording them for posterity, says it all. She has Meghan resisting to visit the house, and she quotes Meghan, "We didn't have jobs, poverty-stricken. So we were just not going to come and see this house. It was impossible. It's like when I was younger and you were window shopping. It's like," sorry, there are endless likes in this. I thought she was Meghan Markle. I didn't know she was Meghan Kardashian, but there we go. It's like, I don't want to go and look at the things that I can't afford. That doesn't feel good. Pity Meghan. Pity Meghan. Poor Meghan. She can't afford a $14 million house. And now comes the boot. How utterly humbled we all are when confronted with a depressingly aspirational Zillow hunt. Oh gosh. She then mentions all the money that the Sussexes have announced they've made and says that Meghan stops to point out two massive Dr. Seussian palm trees, dead center on a lawn so verdant it's better not to consider the water bill. So we have Meghan very extravagantly living despite the drought. And now comes the preposterousness and more shade. Because she quotes Meghan saying that Harry saw the palm trees and she coos, according to Alison P Davis. See how they're connected at the bottom? He goes, my love, it's us. Take out the balance. This is me, not Alison B. Phillips. She said it in another way. And now she has yet more saccharine coming out of Meghan's marshmallowy mouth. Because she has Archie, sweet Archie, being, according to Meghan, every day when Archie goes by, he says, hi, Mama, hi, Papa. I mean, honestly, does this woman seriously believe that people are going to swallow all of this nonsense? But plainly she does. She now describes Meghan leaning back her head and letting the sun beam down into her pores. I mean, that is not a flattering description. We did everything we could to get this house. Because you walk in and go, and then she takes a deep inhale through her nose and breathes out her mouth. Joy and exhale and calm It's healing. You feel free. Well, Meghan has given her the dagger with which to stab her, and Alison Phillips has picked it up and wielded it, because we now have Meghan's fantasy. And I mean, so embarrassing that Meghan could actually have thought that any of this was going to play well with anybody but a total imbecile, because she says that even if Harry and Meghan have stepped back from their royal duties, Meghan is still very aware that people see her as a princess. It's important to be thoughtful about it, because even with the Oprah interview, I was conscious of the fact that there are little girls that I meet and they're just like, oh my God, it's a real life princess. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Here we have the virtue signaling, martyr posturing now, just recounted straight. But her ambitions for herself and the little girls who look up to her, so come out, sarcasm, are more than to marry into a position, quote unquote. I just look at all of them and I think, you have the power within you to create a life greater than any fairy tale you've ever read. Well, the irony of all of this is, of course, that Meghan did create of her own initiative and clever, shall we say, conduct. She did create a fairy tale greater than could have been imagined. And look at what she's done with it. Squandered the whole thing. However, Meghan never wanted to miss a chance to blow her own trumpet and to let everybody know how great I am. How great I am. Oh, I'm so breathy and I'm just so great. I'm just so wonderful. So, I don't mean that in terms of you could marry a prince one day. I mean, you can find love, you can find happiness, you can be up against what you could feel like the greatest obstacle, and then you can find happiness again. Oh, Maxie, baby, you're so wonderful. You're just so marvelous. You're actually inspiring all of us with this marshmallow. Talk about sickly sweet dross. Alison P Davis now portrays Harry as a hippie, dippy pothead. She has him coming in. Oh, he's now in navy blue athletic shorts, a t-shirt, and no shoes. He's appeared from somewhere in the house to say hello. And she then goes into a very entertaining and amusing thing about how does she address him, etc. And then, wait for it, Harry complains about, we're fixing all these things, the pipe, but that's a whole story in itself. Harry explains, exasperated. Oh, Harry, you have such problems, such problems. We all sympathize. But fixing the pipes in Montecito is not the most pressing of them, I can assure you, if you think it is. Anyway. She then quotes Harry and Meghan. The day before, while Meghan was on the photo shoot for this issue, Harry had been left to his own devices, he tells me. Oh. Harry, how could you? What did you do? Sit down and wait for Meghan to press your back? Because you surely can't function unless she does a little bit to the right and maybe a break press to the left. Or maybe you were juggling your balls. She's quoting, "You were gone for like 10 hours yesterday," he marvels to his wife. Notice the word marvels, yet more shade. Quotes, "Tell her the first thing you said when you got back last night," he says, turning to me. Quotes again. "She said, 'I'm not a model.' I was like, 'No, you're not. You are. Of course you can be a model.' And she's like, 'I'm a mom.'" And that's like, "You can be both," Harry says, earning himself so many points. Oh, goodness, you couldn't make this up. I mean, it is a study in farcicality. She then does some serious shade by just describing the setup of Archewell and how it has 3 divisions, which she describes: the non-profit that puts compassion into action, according to the website. I mean, this woman is brilliant at exposing the total phoniness, the total saccharine content of this sickly sweet, pretentious couple. Archewell Productions, which oversees the Netflix deal, and Archewell Audio, which oversees the Spotify deal. Then she quotes Harry plunging the knife into the royal family, because Harry and Meghan are proudly showing her their desk. It's one desk, and it has 2 chairs that are like thrones, she says. Oh my dear, oh my dear. Talk about over-egging the pudding. But they are obsessed with being royal, and she is running with the ball that they have thrown her. And I now quote her quoting Harry. "Most people that I know and many of my family, they aren't able to work and live together," Harry says in passing as I take a peek at their command center. He enunciates family with a vocal eye roll. And then she puts the boot in a very elegant way. She says, "It's actually really weird because it had seemed like a lot of pressure, but it just feels natural and normal," she says, quoting Harry, who has just confessed to the fact that his life with Meghan is under pressure, constant pressure, that it is a lot of pressure, but it is natural and normal for them. Well, of course, we all know that they live in a cauldron of confusion and drama. But he has admitted it, and she has very cleverly brought it out. She now makes the point about her visit took place when Harry was on his way to Africa to do some charity work for the African parks, and Meghan is launching Archetypes. And then that they're going to be going to a handful of engagements in the UK and Germany. And then she says, putting the boot in again, "After all the drama, it looks like they've designed the exact job they wanted to have as royals but were denied. That is a very prescient comment and very perceptive comment to have made. That is exactly what Harry and Meghan have done. They wanted to do this while topping up their royal prestige with the occasional visit to Britain and the occasional royal engagement. Now that they can't have that, they are doing the next best thing, which is coming over here to be pretend royals with rather interesting engagements. One of which I think if you go, you have to pay $3,000 for. It's obviously for the poor. That's why it's only for the rich. I mean, oh goodness, you couldn't make any of this up. But she's absolutely right in her comment. And then she quotes Harry's deadly comment, because it's a deadly admission. He says, I think we always knew the first few years of creating this new life from scratch were going to be the busiest. And Meghan wades in, never able to shut her mouth and giving the game away. She says, well, it's a startup. We were building a business during lockdown. There we have it. It's not a charity, it's a business. We have it out of Meghan's mouth. The charity arm is for show. Everything else is for go to the bank financially. She rarely has them talking, and she is doing a brilliant job of recording and publishing what they have said. It's wonderful. She then observes that there has been little consumable content out of Archewell so far. She goes into the failure of Pearl and has Meghan, who can never fail at anything. Everything is a success. So Meghan says, and there's not much you can do when, even if you think the project is great, the media will report it as though it was only my project. Yes, Meghan, it was your project. And it's tanked. She then puts everything in its proper context by reporting the American media and the shade that arises out of their reportage. Because she says, according to reports in the Los Angeles Times, there's an air of impatience around that Netflix documentary, specifically, and around what the couple is going to produce in general. Attempts to learn what those other projects might be or what their plans are met with an institutional paranoia by a team that responds to press inquiries as if it's protecting nuclear codes. Oh gosh, I have to tell you. So they're incompetent, they're unproductive, and they're paranoid. Oh goodness, I just love it. Then she has Meghan saying, because she says, I ask again, wait for the again, I ask again, if what they are currently filming is a documentary about their love story. And she quotes Meghan saying, what's so funny is I'm not trying to be cagey, she says. I don't read any press. Oh my. For someone who's so authoritative and suing people left, right, and centre. She doesn't read any press. Yes, Meghan. We're all natives of Borneo. All of us. Yes. We believe every word you say. I tell you. Then she captures Meghan's spooky invasiveness, because Meghan has no concept of acceptable distance. She is a super invader of other people's space. Awfully contrived, awfully faux sincere, faux genuine, but invasive. And she quotes Meghan. And she starts by Meghan saying, when the media has shaped the story around you, it's really nice to be able to tell your own story. As if this is the first time Meghan is telling her own story. As if the Oprah interview didn't exist. As if Ellen didn't exist. As if the endless comments put out by them via Omid scabies and via Sunshine Sacks don't exist. I mean, does she really think everybody's as stupid as she believes they are? Because I've got news for you, Megsy baby. You may think you're more clever than anybody else, but only a fool underestimates his or her opponent. And since you are on a mission to crush all of us, I have to tell you, you have cast us as opponents. Us, the public. Joe and Jane public. She quotes Meghan saying out of absolutely nowhere, your eye contact is good, she says suddenly. You're like looking into my soul. This is now Meghan, obviously trying to be pally-pally and failing miserably. I'm so glad that Alison P Davis, woman of colour as well. Woman of colour. If I haven't said that earlier, it's important. She's a woman of colour. And she's seen straight through the supposed sister. And you can see that the sister is not even a distant cousin. Because Alison P Davis is very intelligent and a very capable writer, and is capturing Meghan making a total ass of herself. I stammer out an apology, Miss Davis says. Meghan, I feel it. It's good. I'm like so excited to talk. Oh gosh. And she really thinks this woman is so dumb she's going to swallow the endless treacle-coated marshmallows that she's pouring down her throat. She then asks Harry. I ask if Harry feels isolated without any family nearby. Well, look, we're both building community, she responds. Well, look, we're both building community, whatever that means. I didn't have friends up here. Not exactly an answer to the question, but there we go. She then has magnificent Meghan down pat, because she says, and notice how she says it, Meghan launches into a little story. Meow. Right now, they are trying to teach Archie his manners. Quote unquote. We always tell him manners make the man. Manners, 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 manners. Oh gosh. That is followed by the most arch romantic groundling racist nonsense you've ever heard, which is also pretentious romantic piffle. Because she says, in one of those lessons, Meghan remembered something she'd learnt at a young age from a friend's mom. Always a mom. Salt and pepper are always passed together. Quoting now, she said, you never move one without the other. That's me and Harry. We're like salt and pepper. We always move together. Like the two palm trees, or like Mutt and Jeff. Sorry, they're just friends. But that's how ludicrous it is. I should be more serious. Like Romeo and Juliet, Eloise and Abelard, Daphnis and Chloe, Bonnie and Clyde, salt and pepper, black and white. Well, I mean, I've never heard such rubbish in my life, because any well-brought-up person knows salt and black pepper are not passed together. People ask for the salt and they're passed salt. They ask for pepper and they're passed pepper. Salt and pepper are done in two completely separate things. I never heard of anybody passing salt and black pepper together. If that's a rule concocted by an ignoramus and swallowed by another ignoramus. She then goes into glimpses of their life in Montecito, which I will not go into now. But it's painting a picture of that Meghan is trying to sell her, of this perfectly happy, perfectly contented, perfectly perfect family. Harry, Meghan, and their two little angels. And then comes the blackmail threat. Because the scene moves from Montecito to Frogmore. And the cottage is still theirs and has remained mostly untouched since they left. Quoting Meghan now, here's the blackmail bit coming up. You go back and you open drawers and you're like again. Oh my gosh, this is what I was writing in my journal there. Well, the royal family, I gather, according to press reports, is supposed to be nervous. What they don't know, and I know as a fact, is they're not nervous at all. I'll tell you why they're not nervous. Meghan was a danger they spotted before the wedding ring was on her finger. They have been extremely measured in how they have dealt with her and what information they have imparted to her. Meghan has little or nothing on them, and the little bit that she might have is of no consequence. They have a whole load on her. They have starved her of information. They have starved her of everything, that because they knew she could not be someone that they would be comfortable embracing. This is the way I'm going to put it. They have no fear of Meghan telling the truth. And Meghan has told so many lies, including in this interview, that even if she spoke the truth, nobody would know that once every decade she spoke the truth. They're not worried. So if she thinks that threatening them, because she reissues the threat later on in the interview as well, which I'll get to in a while. But if she thinks that the royal family is worried, they are not. She's now describing the renovations at Frogmore and more shade. She says public funding of the royal family is a conflict as old as the Queen Mary Bondo tiara Meghan wore on her wedding day, putting it in its proper context. And she quotes Meghan as saying, "It was bittersweet, you know, knowing none of it had to be this way." Meghan says, "Oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. Meghan, none of it had to be like this, except you're the one who made it like this, because this is you, and this is therefore the way it had to be. You were not capable of being a royal duchess. You are only capable of being a royal pain in the bum bum." Because Meghan doesn't understand, as Alison P Davis is about to make very clear, that being royal isn't the same as playing royal. And she allows Meghan to damn herself with every stab that she makes at being a victim. And I quote, "How did it get so hard? She had tried to play royal." That's very pejorative. She quotes Meghan. "I was an actress," she says. "My entire job was tell me where to stand, tell me what to say, tell me how to say it, tell me what to wear, and I'll do it. And I'll show up early, and I'll probably bake something for the crew." How wonderful Meghan is. So considerate, so loving of the staff. Is that the same staff that Jason Knopf? No, it's a different staff, but it's staff nevertheless. And it's just beyond belief, because what she's really saying is, and I'm going to say it outright, that Meghan couldn't be royal. To be royal is to be a lady. To be a lady is very simple. You can be poverty-stricken and a peasant, and you behave well. Or you can be a princess and a royal duchess, not allowed to use your royal highness, but you're still a royal duchess. And you're no lady. Meghan I'm going to tell you, since you seem to have missed this boat, you don't have to teach somebody to be a royal princess. They are either by character and inclination suitable for the role, which requires consideration of others, decency, integrity, public spiritedness, or you're not suitable for the role. But you don't play at being a princess, and you don't play a princess. If you are a princess, you function as a princess should and would. And she then has Meghan saying, by her own analysis, her problems stem from her being an American, not necessarily a black American. Meghan is finally trying to get off beating the black drum. So it's now just no longer black against white. It's going to be the UK against the US. I ask you. Her desire to ask a lot of questions and to never be involved with something she couldn't totally have her hands on seemed to violate an unspoken social norm. Yes, it did. Meghan is, as a princess, you perform for the good of the country and the good of the people. You don't need to be in control of the whole operation and the whole narrative. You simply need to be in control of yourself. And Meghan, there have been outstanding successes, royal successes, who were American. Princess Grace of Monaco, Hope Cook, the Queen of Sikkim. They were huge successes because they were decent women who were not out to milk the system for their own private gain. She then has the couple saying something that is a total lie. The couple figured if the tabloids felt free to attack them under the guise of public interest because their lives were taxpayer funded, then they should just remove taxpayer funding from the equation, she explains. They suggested to the firm that they be allowed to work still on behalf of the monarchy and make their own money. Then maybe all the noise would stop, Meghan says of their reasoning. Then she goes on to explain, and I need to be careful not to quote too much because I don't want to breach their copyright, that other members of the family had been allowed to work. Well, that is, in the way Meghan described it, completely false. Working members of the royal family, that is, members of the royal family who do public duties, if they have jobs, are not allowed to be paid. The Duke of Gloucester, when he was an architect and worked as an architect, was not allowed to be compensated for his endeavours. The Duke of Kent, who had jobs as well, was not allowed to receive any financial recompense. Because Meghan knows that the public generally don't know the difference between a working royal in the royal meaning of it and a royal who works, that you would say was a working royal as well, which would be Princesses Eugenie or Beatrice, who did have jobs. They had jobs and they were allowed to keep the money because they were not working royals. They did not function in an official capacity, which Meghan and Harry not only were doing, but Meghan was orchestrating all sorts of scenarios whereby she could gain financial recompense of one sort or the other. So Meghan then says that, for whatever reason, is not something that we were allowed to do. Such a victim. That's my interjection, by the way. I will continue with the quote. Even though several other members of the family do that exact thing, which I've just shown is a lie. What do you think that? Why do you think that is? I ask. Why do you think that is? She says right back with a side eye that suggests I should understand without having to be told. And I am reasonably confident that at that stage, if the tape recorder didn't switch off, there was telepathy. Because Alison P Davis then says, and I'm going to read out all of this because this is important, and it shows that Meghan wanted her to do her dirty work for her. And I know that's the way Meghan operates. I had people approach me to do Meghan's dirty work for her, especially in regard to her father, which I was appalled by then, and I remain appalled by, and till my dying day I will be appalled by it. Meghan is very happy to send other people through the line of fire for her. So Alison P Davis now says, all right, Meghan, I'll bite. It could be that the very reasons she was considered a breath of fresh air at first, and then a supernova, biracial, divorcee, self-made millionaire clothes horse, only highlighted the ways in which the monarchy was becoming irrelevant to a younger generation, and worse, the ways that it was deeply flawed and racist. To that, it could be just because she's black. Or perhaps it owed to the fact that Meghan, who jokes that even my blood type is A positive, wouldn't relinquish control over her own image, and that image had the potential to be too big a brand. Well, I don't think she was reading Meghan's mind. And I think she's getting the boot in subtly, because Meghan wouldn't relinquish control over her own image. And Meghan and Harry had the fantasy that their image had the potential to be too big for the royal family, and that the royal family, as they have often said, both of them, were jealous of them and jealous of their success. Their little bit of success, incidentally. They were very successful for a short time, but that success was not that unique. Princess Margaret had had as great a success. The Queen and Prince Philip had a far greater success. Diana had a great success. Charles, before his marriage to Diana, had a great success. So it's really an awful lot of rubbish. Then Alison P Davis puts the boot in brilliantly. She says, or maybe it's because by the time she met and married Harry, she was already a fully formed American woman, self-made, self-refined. She had desires and goals and a fan base. And while she was a fine actress, well, that, I'm sorry, is just the author having to fulfill the demands of the publication by gilding the lily, because Meghan was never a fine actress. Nevertheless, the job, and wait for it, here's the boot. The job she is best at is envisioning a life a life for herself and getting it. So she is a crass opportunist who is extremely ambitious. That's the more ordinary way of putting what she's just said. Then she continues, that specific type of very American ambition just isn't really compatible with being a princess. You're absolutely right, it's not. Though it is compatible with her current life. Brilliant. Which seems to be the best of all worlds. A palace in a better climate, still culturally considered royalty while having freedom from the royal family, a level of celebrity that exceeds what she would have gotten through Suits or the Tig, a neighbour with mini pigs. Brilliant. Then she says, well, I can't put words into your mouth, I say instead. And then a pause as she looks down and inspects her hands. And here comes the real kick. The bachelor producer in her head deliberates how much should be said. I don't know, she says, casting a knowing gaze out into the middle distance. Well, Alison P Davis is letting us know that she has seen straight through this contrivance and that she is as sincere as a $3 bill. So let me see. I want to wrap this up quite smartly. So let's see what else is. I'm going to have to cull. She has, Meghan saying, she understands what her assent meant to Black Britons. No, you don't, Meghan. You don't. You don't. When you were shooting off your mouth, I was lecturing and having my book launched by the head of the Black History and Black Cultural Museum. It's and Black History Month. No, you don't know what you're talking about. I, as a Jamaican, even though I'm not a Black Jamaican, know what Black Britons feel. And most of them I can tell you, and you only need to read the comments in this to see, most of them deplore you. Had you remained what they thought you were, and had you remained within the fold, yes, you would have been a role model. As it is, they regard you as something and someone to avoid. She then says, and this is interesting because the sole actor, cast member of The Lion King has come out and stated that he was not at the Lion King premiere in London. He has never met Meghan. He never said any of the things she has quoted him as saying, and he regards it as a faux pas. Meghan says, a combination of victimhood, fantasy, folie de grandeur, and rampant egotism all rolled into one. I just had Archie. It was such a cruel chapter. I was scared to go out. Why? Why? I mean, spare me. This sickly, phony. I'm so terrified. I'm so sensitive. I'm a sweet and delicate flower. But I'm a big, strong, independent woman, and I'll crush anybody who comes and stands in my path, whether it's an elephant or an ant. Which one is it, Meghan? I can tell you which one. I know it is. Just looking at that hard-faced, hard-nosed, ice-cold photograph of you that was done by Campbell Addy. A cast member from South Africa pulled her aside. Quoting Meghan now, he looked at me and he's just like light. He said, I just need you to know, when you married into this family, we rejoiced in the streets the same way we did when Mandela was freed from prison. It never happened. He never said it. No one from South Africa was there. This is yet another Meghanism. Meghan, please try to count. TRUTH is a 5-letter word. LIE is a 3-letter word. Try to get it right. She then is wrapping up matters, and she says that, and this is massive shade, the result of always trying to do and say the right thing is the impression that she's constantly policing herself, and in a meta twist, I find myself worrying that the words I write about her will be misinterpreted and dissected rudely, maliciously too. Well, rudely and maliciously by whom? By Meghan, because note what she says. The result of always trying to do and say the right thing. But Meghan isn't always trying to do and say the right thing, is she? She's always on television bleating, or in interviews bleating about how hard done by she was by the British royal family and the British people. So this is very elegant shade. And she then proves that by bringing up, in October 2021, the company Bot Sentinel released a study that found not only that the press around Meghan was negative, but 70% of hateful posts about her came from just 83 accounts that reached up to 17 million Twitter users. Now, this begs the question, who is behind that? I know from members of the Markle family that Meghan and Doria have been behind the bots attacking them. There has never been any need for the media, the press, to actually attack Meghan. Why would they need to do it when they hold fire on most of what they know about her and have never repeated it? So it's not the media. Who is trying to bring her down? Or is this actually a version of any publicity is good publicity, and the more publicity you get, the more you think your brand will be worth? Maybe Meghan and Harry are behind a lot of these. I just throw that out as a possibility. I'm not saying it as a certainty. But the only people that I can see who have any motivation for keeping the level of publicity going, whether negative or positive, is Meghan and Harry. She then has a portrait of Meghan as a mom with Archie. They are picking Archie up from school. Now, this is a contrivance, I have to tell you, as a public figure who had 2 children at school, that no public figure does, unless they are seeking to be portrayed as a fabulous mom. You do not pick your child up from school with a journalist. You simply don't do it. This is one of the many things, Meghan, that duchesses, princesses, ladies, and anybody in the public eye who wishes to maintain their privacy and not violate the privacy of their underage children, you don't do it. I've never before heard of anybody taking a journalist to pick their child up from school. I think it is an absolute outrage. She then goes into the nonsense about how Meghan, after the wedding, the Mail on Sunday leaked a heartfelt letter Meghan wrote to her father begging him to stop speaking to reporters. Meghan, by her own admission, wrote that letter not to mend fences with her father, but to sever relations with her father. Remember her witness evidence. Meghan sued for invasion of privacy and won. And wait for the boot, it's coming in now. Though the defense mounted against her painted her as calculating and manipulative. When I ask about it, Meghan doesn't stay in her sadness for long. Instead, she uses it to discuss how toxic tabloid culture has torn 2 families apart. So Meghan deflects. It's a very useful tool for opportunists. And then she says, Harry said to me, I lost my dad in this process. And then Meghan is putting the boot into Harry now. It doesn't have to be the same for them as it was for me, but that's his decision. So she's repeated that Harry and Charles are on the outs, which I've more or less indicated over a period of time. But here she is confirming it. So she's not only violating the privacy of her child, she's violating the privacy of her father-in-law and her husband. Because I don't recall Harry ever having said that he lost his father in the process. And then there is the rather sickly sweet thing of at a stoplight, she reaches into the trunk and produces a brand new black backpack and hands it to her security detail to give to an unhoused man on the corner. Posing as charitable. No wonder Alison P Davis wrote this article the way she did. I mean, I'd have done the same. I mean, does Meghan not have a clue as to how transparent she is? The obvious answer is she doesn't. But I mean, the gross insensitivity, not to mention the snobbishness. I would never send, I don't know anybody who would send a member of staff over to give a backpack to a homeless person. Give it yourself, you frowsy, impertinent flatus. I mean, it's so offensive that you would send your staff to give, and your virtue signaling, phony baloney nonsense that you're giving somebody a backpack. I mean, it begs the question, how did you know he was going to be there? The whole thing just is so contrived. She then comes out with an outright lie that completely trashes the whole of the British nation. Earlier in our conversations about her goals for the life she's creating here, she'd remarked upon how if Archie were in school in the UK, she'd never be able to do school pickup and drop off without it being a royal photo call with a press pen of 40 people snapping pictures. Sorry, I have a problem with that. That doesn't make me obsessed with privacy. That makes me a strong and good parent protecting my child. Meghan knows it's a lie, and so does Harry. There are press codes in this country by which all the press will abide. Unless they are staged at the behest of the parents, the press is not allowed to photograph children at school. She knows it's a lie. The woman is a brazen hussy. She is such a liar, it is beyond belief. How dare she pretend that we as a nation would allow the harassment of children? This is an outrageous, vicious, venomous lie by a totally deranged human being who will do anything to make herself into a victim and tell any lie to try to improve her brand. And I think we are going to wrap it up quite soon, because here is another direct threat. We ended the visit in her sitting room, where there's a massive grand piano Tyler Perry gifted her as a housewarming present. Write the soundtrack for your life, he told them. And isn't she doing it? She's singing like a bird out of tune. It's interesting, Meghan continues. I've never had to sign anything that restricts me from talking, she reveals, as she ushers me towards the door. So she does the old trick of the best for last. I can talk about my whole experience and make a choice not to. Why doesn't she talk? Still healing, she responds. Healing from what? Healing from betraying the British royal family, the British nation, the British press, your father, your sister, your infirm sister, your brother. Who are you healing from? The perpetrator is not the one who's suffering. It is the victim. Look at what is happening with Harry's poor grandmother, and you have the unmitigated gall to talk about your healing. You inflict tremendous damage on people, on their health, on their reputation, on the institution. Some of them have spent their whole lives serving and this nation, and you have the unmitigated gall to talk about you are healing? You really are beyond belief. However, I'm going to continue towards, because Alison P Davis says, I wonder if, given all that she's put behind her now, she thinks there is room for forgiveness between her and her royal in-laws and her own family. quoting Meghan, I think forgiveness is really important. It takes a lot more energy not forgive, she says wisely. Well, of course she does. People are like Meghan and my mother. They have canned wisdom and they trot it out. Noble words to cover dirty deeds. But it takes a lot of effort to forgive. I've rarely made an active effort, especially knowing that I can say anything. She says, her voice full of meaning. There we have the threat again. And then she is silent. She breathes in and snarls and breathes out and says, I have a lot to say until I don't. Do you like that? Sometimes, as they say, the silent part is still part of the song. Then wait for it. And then quickly and decisively, as if it were my idea, there we go again, Meghan the manipulator, but Alison P Davis is on to her game. The conversation ends. Meghan sets a harvest basket in my arms, a cornucopia of fruit and vegetables from their garden and a jar of jam from the Lily Bunny Garden Plus larder. She had the labels made on Etsy. Is she going into business? We'll find out soon enough, won't we? But to resume the quote, because this is the end. She snarls and waves as I make my way out the door, wondering if somehow I'd missed everything she was trying to say. Alison P Davis, you're brilliant. You didn't miss a thing and you got everything conveyed with a professionalism and an elegance that is truly admirable. Yes, every now and then you had to pretend that a broken down nag was a fine racehorse. That's something you have to do if you are staff, if you are employed. We all understand that, but the way you wrote this, I can only say congratulations. It is a masterclass in unmasking the arch manipulator and the pretender that Meghan is, and seems to think that she's so clever that nobody can see through her. And presumably she thought because you're black, even if you saw through her, you'd lie through your back teeth, and you've proven to be honourable and decent, as most black people in my experience are. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. If you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and remember, please keep the questions and comments coming in. This cannot be done without you. God bless and goodbye.